Welcome back to Bold Faith Bible. As we continue our study of Galatians, we're picking up in chapter 3, verse 6. It says, "Even so, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Therefore, be sure that it is those who are of faith who are sons of Abraham. The scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, 'All the nations will be blessed in you.' So then, those who are of faith are blessed with Abraham, the believer." Right? So we're continuing on this conversation between Paul and the Galatians. They've gone off believing that Christians must become Jews in order to become Christians, or they must become Jews in order to become like this next layer, this next level of Christian, which is false. We see as Paul appeals all the way back to Abraham back in the Old Testament, right? He is the first Jew, sort of. Jew, of course, refers to the son, the kingly son of Jacob, who was Judah. And Judah was the largest tribe in southern Israel. So when the tribes split between Israel and Judah, or the northern and the southern kingdom became known as Judah. And of course, the northern tribes were taken into exile, and they were dispersed. And so the group that came back was primarily from the southern kingdom. And so they were kind of known as Jews since then. So how can Abraham be a Jew when his great-grandson is actually going to be Judah, right? Abraham was before the Jews. He was the father of faith. He is to be the father of many nations, we're even told, right? So we see here two promises, that two words from the Old Testament that we hear, that Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. This is referring back to right after he has this encounter with Melchizedek, the priest of God, on his way back from defeating the armies that had defeated Sodom. Because Lot, his nephew, was in Sodom when it was captured, and he was taken into captivity. Abraham went out to rescue him, meets Melchizedek, gives him a tenth of all of he had, and then shortly after this, he has an encounter with God. And in this encounter, God makes him a promise that like the stars in the heavens, so your descendants shall be. And Abraham believes, even though he doesn't have a son, he believes God, and this is credited to him as righteousness. In that was embedded the promise of the gospel, that through Abraham, that the peoples of the earth will be blessed, that there will be this forgiveness of sins. So he believes God for the salvation, and God credits it to him as righteousness. He doesn't earn it, but he has it. He receives it as a gift from God, right? So all that to say, one, as it says in verse 8, which is quoting Genesis 12:3, that all the nations will be blessed through Abraham. Not just the Jews, not just the nation of Israel. If salvation is only in the nation of Israel, then this verse doesn't mean anything at all, and God was just making stuff up, which God doesn't do. God was saying that all the nations will be blessed. All the nations will have access to the gospel. And if all the nations have access to the gospel, then you don't need to become a Jew, right? All this is just pointing to the fact that as believers, us Gentile believers, we are grafted into the tree, the tree that is the Abrahamic line. We are not Jews if we're Gentiles. We're not promised the land. He says the land is promised to his descendants. I'm not a descendant of Abraham, and if you're a Gentile, neither are you. Now, if you're a descendant of Abraham and you're actually a Jew, then you are an heir to that promise. But so there are some promises that are made to just the direct descendants, and there's some promises that are made to all those who believe. And the promises that are to all those who believe do not actually count for those who are descendants. You may be a blood descendant of Abraham, but you may not be part of the promise of God. There is not salvation for all Jews. There's only salvation for those who believe. There were two sons of Abraham, right? Two sons. There was Abraham. Abraham had Isaac and Ishmael, right? And Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. And only one of them was the son of promise. The other one was rejected because of his unbelief. We see throughout history that those who did not believe were not accepted by God. And those who believed, even though they did not keep the law of God, they were forgiven. Perfect example is David. Did David keep the law of God? No, he did not. He murdered and he committed adultery. Just in that one instance, and lied about it too. So that's all three, right? He broke the law. So and it wasn't even like an accident. He did it on purpose. He intentionally did it. This was iniquity. But David says, how blessed is the man whose iniquity will not be counted against him. Forgiven by faith. And this is what we're looking at here, that we are forgiven by faith, and that is the way it has always been. If you're familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, in The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Aslan refers to a deeper magic. And this is what C.S. Lewis was actually referring to, was the Mosaic law was the law, right? But then Aslan, when he talks about this deeper magic, it's just like what Jesus said. He said, there's a deeper law beyond the Mosaic law. There is this law of faith by which people can be saved through my blood sacrifice. And that is how we are saved. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe button to get this out to more people. If you want to share this with people over email, please go ahead and do that. But we will be back again here next week. I'm sorry last week was a little late posting. I've been just crazy busy, but I will be more dependable going forward. May God richly bless you, and we'll see you again next week.